let's get to the pigskin. I know we got 6 months away from football, but man, some big moves that has happened. Max Crosby traded to the Baltimore Ravens in exchange for 2 first-round picks. To me, guys, I think the Ravens won this one. The Ravens, because you get a preeminent pass rusher to help out this team. Now, defensively, if you look at the Baltimore Ravens, with Zach Orr as their defensive coordinator last year, they were 24th place ranking in total defense. They were 18th in points allowed, 23.4 points per game, only 30 sacks last year for the Baltimore Ravens. I think with adding Max Crosby, you're going to get at least double-digit sacks. Do I think this is going to help the Ravens get to a Super Bowl? I don't know about that. I still believe, to me, the team is Denver. I truly believe had Bo Nix had played in that AFC Championship game, Denver would have advanced to the Super Bowl. You still can't ignore New England, especially with the cap situation that they're in. They've got a ton of money in cap space. We got to wait and see what's going on with Buffalo. Kansas City, again, I think there's slowly but surely they're making some good moves. They got back Eric Bieniemy. They traded Trent McDuffie. We'll talk about that later on in the show. They got themselves some draft picks. Hopefully they can try to use it to get the offensive line, as Champ has constantly lamented. But I do like that the Ravens won this one. I understand to Champ's point that with the Raiders, and he wants the Raiders to trade the number 1 overall pick because he doesn't want Fernando Mendoza to be subjected to the Raiders organization. But I'm like, look, Champ, the Raiders going to have to make a decision to see who's their guy or whatnot. You might as well draft him. We saw Baker Mayfield. We saw Sam Darnold drafted by moribund franchises. Baker Mayfield, number 1 overall to the Cleveland Browns. Sam Darnold, 3rd overall to the New York Jets. Fortunately for them, they turned it around. It told you a lot more about those organizations than it has to than them. And I think for the Raiders, look, Tom Brady is there. So now you're probably going to get Kenneth Walker because the Seahawks, they're perhaps moving on from him. The Raiders may get him. You talked about that scheme, how with Kubiak, how it's going to open the lanes for the running backs. Ashton Genty had 1,000 yards with not that much lanes. So imagine with him and a Kenneth Walker and with a Brock Bowers coming back, you need a type of quarterback. And even if you draft Mendoza with the number 1 overall pick, you don't have to throw him in the fire necessarily right away. He could sit and learn. Get you a veteran quarterback, and then eventually, when he's ready to go, he'll go. But I do think that the Ravens, they won this trade because they needed some type of guy on the defense. They got to go back to their defensive ways. Boy, Mike McDonald was a huge loss for them. And you saw how the way Mike McDonald carried the Seattle Seahawks to their 2nd Super Bowl. But I think the Ravens won this one because they get a preeminent pass rusher in Maxx Crosby. There were reports about him going to Dallas. Look, my thing is, Jerry wasn't going to do that. Jerry wasn't going to do it. So I think for the Ravens, they won this trade because I'm still leery about what the Raiders going to do with those 2 first-round picks. If you do get Mendoza, you better get yourself some O-line, and you better get yourself a pass rusher. So those are my thoughts. Whoever wants to go, who do y'all think won this trade?
Pick this one first before BRL smokes me off the arena.
Man, bro, you know what you're talking about, boy. Do your thing. Do your thing.
But I think it's one hell of a trade for the Baltimore Ravens, man. Look, I don't think people understand the people who they're going to have coming back. They're going to have Roquan Smith coming back. You have Justin Metabupe, who is one hell of a defensive tackle. You have Kyle Vanoy, he's going to be back. So the attention is not going to necessarily be on Max Crosby. You're going to be able to put him with an already great defense as far as on paper is concerned and surround him with a lot of other great players. And he said his goal is to get them where? To a Super Bowl. So he already knows what's going to go on. I think they won this in the sense of you're going to add someone to an already on paper good defense. There was just a lot of injuries last year. You know, Mike McDonald was no longer with the team, so you saw the holes that he left in the scheme wise. But if they can get the scheme right, I really think that this is going to be one hell of a defense. Problem is this: you still have not addressed the number one most important thing on the offensive side of the ball. And what is that, ladies and gentlemen?
It's gonna be your offensive line.
Thank you. You have to address that offensive line.
Not just offensive line. They also have to address the tight end situation because Isaiah Likely is more than likely probably leaving.
But I think they re-signed. But I think they did re-sign Mark Andrews. Though
they re-signed Mark Andrews, but he's a little bit over the hill.
True.
In the terms of football terms, but you know, you have somebody in the system for that long, they can play well past the prime of their years. But I really think they need to look at trying to bring in maybe a Tyreek Hill or someone who can be a prime target for Lamar Jackson. And they need to fix their offensive line because I don't know who number 77 is, but I remember Shannon Sharp talking about that guy.
On nightcap, yeah.
Good God.
Fafalele, I think is what his name. He was horrible this year.
There is no reason for you to be that big and be that sorry. You are what you, in the great words of Major Payne, you still a shit sandwich, and you a soggy one at that. So
there was some bad offensive linemen at his size. Remember Eric Flowers?
Yeah, Robert Gallery. But
he at least got it together a little bit. I'll give Robert Gallery that. He did get it together.
Yeah, when they finally moved Robert Gallery to guard, they finally got it together. But they still have a lot of holes in order to fix in that offensive lineman. With the offensive line, let's hope that this is the trade that puts them over the hump. Look, I don't think people understand this. Talent for the Baltimore Ravens have never been the problem. Never been the problem. They have always been able. They are one of the best drafted teams probably ever. For them to transition from Joe Flacco, who was a Super Bowl winning quarterback, to now having Lamar Jackson, who's an MVP and a Hall of Famer at this point, that's the short of amazing. For them to go years without having a true quarterback and still been able to win a Super Bowl and then able to stay in Super Bowl contention, that's a short of amazing because of the talent that they were able to accrue. I think what worries me this year about the Baltimore Ravens is this. You don't have the offensive minds that you had on that team before. There is no Todd Monken. He's gone. There is no Harbaugh. He's gone. There's no Mike McDonald. He's gone. So a lot of the talent that was used to these particular systems are no longer there as far as coaching-wise is concerned. They lost a lot of great coaches. Say what you will about Harbaugh, great coach. Say what you will about Todd Monken, great coach. Say what you will about Mike McDonald, Super Bowl winning, great coach. 2 out of 3 of the coaches that have left from this staff in the past 3 years are Super Bowl winning coaches. Harbaugh, Mike McDonald. And Mike McDonald may not be through winning Super Bowl. This may only be the beginning depending on who they can bring back. So it's not a question of talent. It's on the coaches now. And it's on the players at this point. Because how is the offense going to mesh without Todd Monken as that offensive mind? And without Harbaugh overseeing kind of that talent? How's the defense now going to be now that you have a new defensive coordinator? Now that you have a new head coach? Now that you have a new offensive coordinator? Everything is pretty much new at this point. So the coaching that was once there that stabilized this franchise for a long period of time. When you talk about Todd Monken, when you talk about Harbaugh, when you talk about McDonald, that's no longer there. So what are these new coaches going to do? I don't really think it's going to come down to talent. Talent has been something that the Baltimore Ravens has had an abundance of for the existence of their franchise going all the way back to 1996 when they first came into existence after they left Cleveland. So it's never ever been a talent standpoint. Right now, it's coaching.
Scheme.
What will the coaching do? What will the scheme do? How are you going to use all of these high-powered, what I like to say, toys that you're going to have? How are you going to make this? How are you going to turn this Christmas list into a great Christmas for the kids? How are you going to do that? How are you going to put Maxx Crosby in a situation where they have to block him and Justin Metabuke at the same time? How are you going to put him in a situation where you're lining up Kyle Vanoy and you're lining him up right next to Maxx Crosby so they can't key in on him? So they have to, it's going to be either one or the other. How are you going to line all three of those guys up in the same area so they eat up a double team? That way Raekwon Smith can come right in there on a stunt tackle. How are you going to do that? With Lamar Jackson, are you going to do a lot more read options? Are you going to be able to do a lot more passing?
You're probably going to have to do more passing at Lamar at this point, champ, because Lamar's, 29?
Yeah.
Even though you still want to maintain his athleticism, but at the same time, you've seen them injuries before, and he was nicked up last year. So my thing is, you don't want to run Lamar to the ground. But I was speaking to the big fella as well, Broad Sports. Shout out to Broad Sports. They still missing a weapon. So they need some help with the receiver tree. They do need another tight end, champ, because to your point, Mark Andrews, my Oklahoma brother, he's at the back end of his career. So you better get somebody in the draft. Now, defensively, they loaded with Kyle Hamilton, Matabuke, Maxx Crosby, and them. I think their talent, they're loaded. It's just going to come down to the first-year head coach, defensive coordinator. And again, should they win the division? Yes, they should win the division because if you look at Cincinnati, you talk about Baltimore's offensive line. What about Cincy's offensive line? And they still haven't addressed the defensive side of the football field. Todd Monken, I like the fact that he's going to be in Cleveland to help out Shador. And Shador is Todd Monken's type of guy. After all, when they first met in Cleveland, he was raving about Shador. He wanted to draft him. And plus, they better get Shador some type of weapons around him because they're going to move on from Njoku. You know, there were reports about them possibly getting Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
So they got to figure. So they're going to see with that. And with Pittsburgh, look, Mike Tomlin's no longer there. Mike McCarthy. Again, I think the only reason why they brought him there because Mike McCarthy is from Pittsburgh. He grew up a Steelers fan. And plus, it's the only way to try to convince Aaron Rodgers to come back to stay for another year in Pittsburgh. I think for Baltimore, they should win the division. But it's going to take them some time, champ. I think Denver, to me, is the team in the AFC. With their defense, Sean Payton as a head coach, people say whatever you want about Bo Nix. He's not flashy or spectacular. At the end of the day, in the words of Alec Baldwin, ABC, always be closing. Whoever thought that Bo Nix, of all people, would outperform and outbeat Josh Allen in a divisional round, considering this was supposed to be the year for Josh Allen to come out the AFC. Am I lying? Because Patrick Mahomes, home like the rest of us. Lamar Jackson, home like the rest of us. This was going to be the perfect opportunity for Josh Allen to do that. And plus, we got to wait and see with Buffalo, and we'll talk about them just in a second. We got to wait and see how Joe Brady is going to be as the first-year head coach. And again, you let Sean McDermott walk out the door. I'm still surprised Sean McDermott is not a head coach yet. I don't know why. Someone will explain to me. But BRF.
I do think Baltimore won this trade because of what I think Maxx Crosby is going to do as far as opening up that defense, not only with the pass rush, but when you have a really good pass rush, it always opens up your secondary. Your secondary is able to really kind of dig in, and they're able to really cover better and make more plays because when your pass rush is being able to get pressure on the quarterback, you're speeding up the quarterback's clock. He's making off kilter throws. He's not staying on rhythm. More opportunities for interceptions. That really plays into the Baltimore Ravens' hands when you got someone like a Malachi Starks, when you got somebody like a Kyle Hamilton who can go two ball hogs, who can go get it at any moment's notice. So Maxx Crosby is really going to help the totality of that defense. I talked about that in one of my last TikTok videos that I made where I stitched one of my fellas. Shout out Jay Sport. Shout out Josh. I made a stitch of one of his videos. He He's not necessarily a fan of the trade. I don't mind the trade because when you look at the Baltimore Ravens and you look at how they performed as a defense last year, you brought up a lot of the stats. But the one that was really alarming, they were 31st in sack rate, 4.6%. As far as all like plays, 4.6% in sack rate. You're not getting anything done as far as getting to the quarterback. Maxx Crosby is going to help that immensely because he's going to take so much pressure off of Matabuke. He's going to take pressure off the linebacker core because now this is going to be on Jesse Minter, first year head coach with the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be on him as far as how to really draw up something schematically to really improve this front seven when you have the pieces there as far as like drawing double teams or eliminating double teams or allowing more one-on-ones for guys like Cal Van Noy, guys like Mike Green, who you hope take a step in his second year being on this defense. So this is really going to be Jesse Minter's job to really cultivate this defense and create a scheme in order for them to really produce more and be better on that front seven. Now, we'll say this, though. From the Vegas Raiders side of this trade, they get Baltimore's pick, which is number 14. I personally see them going offensive line with the 14th pick because they need it. They need it just as much as anybody. So I think it would make more sense for them to go offensive line at 14. I understand why, Champ, and I think I talked about it a little bit. I understand why, you might want to trade out of the number 1 pick in order to acquire draft capital, in order to build the depth chart up more. But at the same time, when you see someone like a Fernando Mendoza who's right there, you don't want to keep chancing it, and then you finally take the quarterback, and then he ultimately ends up sucking anyway because you made the wrong pick. I think you have to take the chance eventually, which is why if they were to draft Fernando Mendoza with the number 1 overall pick, I don't have a problem with it because ultimately at the end of the day, you have to nail your guy down. And like if you're doing your draft boards and you're doing your grades and you're doing your scouting and all of this, if Fernando Mendoza is your guy at number 1, just take him. I mean, if he doesn't give you any cause to pause, if he gives you no reason to doubt him as being the franchise guy who could come in and really right this ship, you take him and you don't ask no questions. You don't explain yourself. You move on to pick 14. You got 2 picks this round. You got the 2027 first from Baltimore as well. You don't explain yourself. You take him and you scout. You look at your offensive line. You look at your skill positions. I mean, me personally, I'm probably looking at that offensive line at 14. I mean, would I have a problem with them taking another, getting another weapon, like a receiver or somebody like that to take pressure off of Brock Bowers? Wouldn't have a problem with that at all. But I personally would like to see them go offensive line at 14 because ultimately what's having targets if the quarterback's on his butt. I mean, come on, Champ. Give me that line, baby. Give me that line.
Said the line is the most important thing, and like I said, quarterback can't throw on the side.
There it is.
And I'm gonna just be real. Speaking of quarterbacks and being on your back, Joe Burrow with all of these pass rushers that's in my damn division,
I'm praying to God every day.
This year, in order to say you can protect me, you got this year with everybody coming back to say that you can protect me.
You got to deal with TJ Watt. You got to deal with Maxx Crosby, and you got to deal with Myles Garrett.
Again, and that's just the guys and those are just the big names you have to deal with.
Let's not forget the interior.
Exactly. That ain't including Justin Metabupe and all of those guys.
Mason Graham with Cleveland starting to come on a little bit second half of last year.
Exactly. So you have this year in order to say you can protect me. Because I don't think the Cleveland Browns are going to be a factor this year, although they will be much improved. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be much of a factor this year because you don't have a Mike Tomlin that's going to be able to clean up all the deficiencies of a team going down the stretch. Mike McCarthy is a good coach, but he's not Mike Tomlin good, where he's going to be able to overcome the fact that you may have a bad quarterback, a bad defense, a bad running game, and everything like that to at least get you to the playoff. I don't think Mike McCarthy is that kind of coach. So it's going to be us, and it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens. So you have this year, and this year alone, to say, hey, I can protect you. We can get back to a Super Bowl. I can keep you on your feet for at least the majority of the season, for at least 14 games. If you
Exactly.
don't, you might as well get on the phone right now and start asking for 3 first-round picks because I'm hauling behind up out of there. And what
Well,
they're
you've
about,
been saying that Joe Burrow should do what Carson Palmer did, which is
yes,
retire, then come out of retirement, and then go for somewhere else. That's
exactly.
what
I've been
you've
saying that.
no,
So,
you've been saying that,
yeah, I've been
and to
saying
your
that, but
credit,
you
you
have this year in order to prove that because, like I stated, if you really want me to be honest, the AFC North is going to be a two-man race, Cincinnati and Baltimore. You have this year to prove that, hey, you could get me some protection. You could get me and at least give me a comparable defense, so I don't have to go out here and score 55 points a game. You have this
Exactly.
year. After
and I'm
this
telling
year,
you, and
I'm out.
Chip, I'm telling you, sooner or later, Burrow's gonna get up out of here. Because at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, do you trust the Bengals organization? Do you trust Mike Brown, given how cheap he is as an owner?
No, he hasn't built an offensive line up to this point. So why are we trusting him now? And I mean, the only reason why we're even looking at the Cincinnati Bengals from a standpoint of being able to contend with the Baltimore Ravens in this division is how that offense regularly lights up Baltimore. I
You
mean,
even did it with Joe Burrow out and Joe Flacco, 40
exactly.
years old,
You look at
was
this off
producing.
exactly. You look at this offense year in and year out. These Ravens Bengals games are never defensive dominated games. They are always shootouts. Always
No,
shootouts because the Bengals are just able, for some reason, the Cincinnati Bengals, and you like you said, it's no matter who plays quarterback, they always know how to attack the Baltimore Ravens secondary. They know how to pressure them, especially when you got a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins. They know how to put pressure on them. I mean, they're arguably the best receiving duo in the league. They know how to pressure them. These games are never defensive slugfest. They are always shootouts. So this is the reason why we're even saying Cincinnati's got a shot at this division because they know how to slaughter the Baltimore defense on a basically year in year out
As
basis. They
long as
always know how
Joe
to play
Burrow can
them.
stay healthy. As
Exactly.
long as he can.
The
The only
main thing is
concern,
Burrow staying healthy. Exactly.
because again, if Burrow keeps getting hit like this, sooner or later, I hate to say this, he's going to be remembered more Andrew Luck, and that's going to be a travesty. Because again, they drafted him with the #1 overall pick. He's a native kid out of the state of Ohio. Only reason why he's staying in Cincinnati because you paid him the money, and plus his two top targets, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, getting their money and their bread.
yeah,
It's just
Mm-hmm.
that Steelers. I think for the Steelers, I don't trust Mike McCarthy at this point. I don't. At this point, look, you're replacing Mike Tomlin. You went from Mike Tomlin to Mike McCarthy. Okay, we're gonna see how the Steelers are with Mike McCarthy. Although I think Mike McCarthy later in his years in Dallas, he did a good job, particularly in 2023, as far as with the play calling. I look at Cleveland, that's going to be a team to excite me because I want to see how because Shador and Todd Monken, their relationship, their rapport. It seems like Shador Sanders is in a situation to succeed because of the coach Todd Monken. I'm sorry, y'all, I hate to say it, but Kevin Stefanski never really gave me the belief that he really liked Shador Sanders. Not saying that he wanted him to fail or sabotage or anything, but Todd Monken, you saw when he arrived at Cleveland, Shador is his type of guy.
yeah.
And I think if they surround Shador with some more pieces around him, I think with Cleveland, hey, you got yourself a quarterback. And besides, at this point, do you want to trust Deshaun Watson at this point? Given at this point in his career, I'm sorry. And again, Chip, you bring up all the social media. You bring up his social media with, look, you got on me for Ben Simmons, for Ben Simmons stealing money. Deshaun Watson lately, these past couple of years, been stealing money because just like Ben Simmons, you bring up their social media. How it's nothing to do with their sport. How it's to do with Instagram. Has to do with the houses, the cars, the clothes, everything else.
This should
So there
not.
you.
This should not. I've seen like a lot of reports saying that Cleveland's going to lean towards Deshaun Watson. That for the 2026 season as a starter quarterback. This should not be handed to Deshaun Watson. If anything, let them compete for the job. And if Shador shows you something to want to roll with him as a starter, let him be the starter. At least let it be an open competition. Do not hand it to Deshaun Watson because if you hand it to Deshaun Watson, that's 2 strikes on you already because he cannot be trusted.
There you go.